It is
Okay.
6:16 on 2/7. I'm calling the Finance Committee meeting to order. All right, first item on the agenda is the minutes.
Make a
from
motion that
February.
we accept the minutes of February 2nd.
Second.
Any corrections, discussion? I do.
Okay.
The intention is to bring forth an override, but it's going to require a great deal if the intention is to bring an override.
Okay.
Because we don't make that decision. That's a decision for other boards.
But wasn't that part of the discussion last week?
If the intention is to bring an override,
Right.
then it's a lot of work. Not the intention is to bring an override, because
Okay.
we haven't gotten to that point yet.
Okay.
It's a small thing, but it's a big thing.
Got it.
So, any other changes, corrections? Okay, to accept, as amended?
Aye.
Okay. All right, first things first, it's the library. Carrie?
Kerry, other than the regular salary increases, it looks like you're gonna put on, is it another children's library?
No, I'd like to increase her hours. Currently, the children librarian works, she actually works 29 hours a week, but the town funds 26 of those hours. 3 hours are funded out of our state aid.
Okay,
And so I would actually, I think my first line here, the level funded, I believe that 35,000, that includes the 3 additional hours, so it includes 29, it's 29 hours.
okay,
And then the 54,000, that is adding the additional hours to make it a full-time librarian. It says 14, but I'm feeling like it might be
I'm getting
11.
What are you looking
the
at?
number I'm looking at, Kerry, is 61,374.77.
Oh, see, now that's, they asked me to do it again and they didn't give it to you, so I
We haven't gotten the
believe-
needs budget yet.
You haven't
But
gotten.
we haven't gotten the level service budget yet. We got the needs budget.
So the needs,
So this is the needs one we got here. Oops,
which is not the one I have in front of me.
we can help you out with that.
Okay.
There you go. Evening, sir.
Yes, so,
Is that number right?
no, that number should be 54,891.20.
50,
Yeah.
what, 4891.20?
891.20.
That's
Okay.
the needs budget.
Well, that is
Oh.
actually my request for additional hours. The needs budget was level funded, which I don't know why you don't have this one. So that is 3567928.
Do you have an extra one of those?
I'll give you this one.
Okay.
Here.
You want me to go make a bunch
No,
of
I'm good.
copies?
No, we're good.
So
So-
see, you can see there are two. One is level funded.
Yep.
It says I should have crossed off the step raises because we received our step raises in January. Thank you very much. So it should just say level funded.
So, all right.
So the one that you sent into the TA back in September, October, had 81,323.72 for your salary from the 78,601.80, which is from the annual town meeting. And that is what, your step raise?
Yep.
Okay. The assistant salary went from 35,522.72 to 36,872.68. Is that step raise?
That was her step raise, yeah.
Okay.
And she received that, so.
Okay, children's librarian went from 35,048.88 to 61,374.77.
Yeah, that's, no,
Additional
that's,
that's.
That number's
No,
wrong.
that one's wrong.
So
That is
now it
incorrect.
should go to 54,891.20.
Yes, that is with an increase in hours, but I will give you the number that with keeping her at.
That,
her-
we're,
You don't
right
care
now,
about
we're
that?
doing the needs
Okay,
budget.
okay,
When we
okay.
get that, we'll worry, yeah,
Okay,
because that will come from Gary.
okay,
Aides wages stay the same, 25,000.
yep,
Purchase services, 35.
correct,
Supplies, 6,000.
correct.
Oh, that's an increase. Aides wages changed from 34.45 to 35.
Mm-hmm,
And what is that?
wait a minute. Library aid-
Purchase services, excuse me, purchase
That's
services.
purchase services, that would be because I believe with
In-
this, I was gonna increase hours to bring us up to 40, which means I'd need some more money for heat and electricity.
Okay,
Okay, and then you've got from supplies from 4,218 to 6,000.
Mm-hmm.
And again, because of the
Because
increased
of the
hours.
increase in hours.
Okay? And then other charges, that's the calculation,
the
that's all based upon
calculation.
everything else.
Exactly, that's what my materials budget.
So the 55, 961, 14 should change now that it's now 54, 891, 20.
Correct.
Okay.
Karen, excuse me, can I just ask Carrie, because the wage numbers were based on the FY24 wage matrix that Becky sent out, where employees, even if they got a step increase in January, if they were eligible for a step increase, that was included in that wage matrix for FY24. So I think that's why those numbers are higher than what you might have reflected on yours.
Well, I think there was an increase, yes. Yes. With that,
Because we went through and checked all the wages for all the non-union employees when we were finalizing this. That is reflective of what the FY24 wage should be if it stays that way.
right.
Thus
so,
the reason why that form is very important, because that would be helpful for all of us to be able to see that this is what it is and this is what it includes and what ties out to the budget.
Can you send me that form?
I'll send you-
Gary's access and I can work on that
Yeah,
tomorrow?
because that form would say, here's what it was, here's what was
Right.
added, here's where it is, here's this added, here's this added, here's this added.
Yep.
It makes it very clear and simple.
Mhm.
We don't need OTP, Q, whatever. We need, here's the wage, here's the step, here's the
Right.
COLA.
all right.
Okay, so you're saying the 61,374.77 should remain because that is the 40 hours a week with the step increase.
Yes, that's based on that wage matrix. I calculated it based on the 40 hours with the steps that Becky indicated for each individual employee as of FY24.
So, every sheet that I got, and every number is different. So, my total, if I use the biggest number, is 301, 532, 31.
That's
Right,
correct.
That's right.
Okay,
That's the needs budget.
and that's the TA request and the department request, whatever we want to call it. All right.
Okay, so you're, and this budget, so this one is 40 hours a week. We're finally getting you to the 40 hours a week.
Not me.
No,
Children's
finally
librarian.
getting the
My
library.
library,
itself.
to the library, that's right, we're
Right,
at 37
you being the
right now.
library.
We're at 37 now.
Yep,
Okay?
So, okay,
So where are you seeing different numbers, Darren?
this one's different, that Carrie's got.
It is different.
It's a little less.
Well, so the one that you gave to Darren was the level funded,
Nope.
the level service?
What I gave to Darren was this.
Okay.
And so here would be my level funded line, and
Okay.
this would be,
Okay. So how do we go from,
All right, as long as the one, we get the same number at the mark,
these
301.
differences in the math that Tamika used.
okay.
Those matrix drive me a little crazy. I imagine they do you, because it's like they're changing, they're constantly changing.
So what is it that we're trying to focus on as the number? Is it the number that,
the 301.
The 301.
301 is the needs?
301 is the one we currently have in front of us.
Okay. And they've been asked to provide, the department's been asked to provide.
We haven't gotten that yet, we're not discussing it yet.
The needs?
The needs budget, we have the needs, that's what's in front of us.
That's what I'm saying.
The level service we don't have yet, so
Right.
we can't look at it, because that changes everything.
So, but what I'm looking at is, Terry's budget says that we're at 262, and she has a request of 296. And then to Darren's point, there's 301 is what
Right.
number.
And it's because of the change in the wage matrix, because she put, what they went through and corrected all of the wages to make the steps and whatnot.
Okay.
Unbeknownst.
So my only question is, what, to make this number, the 301, should the number be?
301, 532.
That's what it is?
Yeah.
That's the one it
Okay.
is.
That's the latest, greatest.
So we're good with that at this point? Okay.
I asked the question about the biggest increase, she explained it to me, I think we're good.
Yeah,
We're good?
I don't have any
I think
questions.
so.
It's Madam Chairwoman's decision, but I think
No,
we're good.
it's not my decision. I asked all my questions, that's what I needed to know.
So you're
This
good?
shows us going from 37 to 40 hours. Now, don't take this as an acceptance where this is our first night going over
I
anything.
understand that completely. I know how this game is played.
She's
Just
done
like to
this
make sure I
before.
put it out there.
It's not your first rodeo.
No, it's not, and I understand exactly what you folks have to do.
Okay.
I don't
I just-
envy you one bit.
I just want to add that even if this is not what happens and we don't have 40 hours this year, it's going to be a reality soon because we're going to reach 10,000 in population. And at that point, the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners will require that our library, based on its population, be open 40
Yes.
hours.
Okay, could I ask you to please, if you're gonna speak, we all know who Carrie is, could you tell me who you are and why you're here? Because I just can't I don't know your name, so I
Sorry.
can't say this is so-and-so.
Sorry, I'm Tressa Santillo. I'm a library trustee.
Okay,
And
yes.
so I'm just going to reiterate that if we do, I totally understand that if we don't get to 40 hours a week this year, I get it. I think we all understand that, but soon, rather than later, it's going to be a reality that our population will reach 10,000, which is the next cutoff per the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners, which is tied into additional funding. So if it doesn't happen this year, that is the direction that we're going in. So it needs to continually be on the table.
I've been doing this for 11 years. All 11 years, Carrie's been saying the exact same thing to us, so, but
Okay,
thank you,
cool.
I appreciate it. Carrie's very good at making sure that we
People
all.
will watch this on television, and they
She
need to
is.
hear
Yes,
it too.
I agree.
Carrie's excellent, but we need more voices to chime in with more support,
So,
that's all.
question, and she brought up another question for me.
Okay?
Does that mean anything else? You need to be open 40 hours with all the
5
different-
days a week, 40
with-
hours.
With all the different librarians, so everything would go up.
Not necessarily. At this point, Susan, my assistant director, is very content with her hours. She has no interest in increasing those
Okay,
at all.
but you don't have to have so many staff
No,
for.
I like to have a minimum of 2 people on the floor all
Okay,
the time.
that's good.
I
So,
just
but the-
feel like that's safe staffing levels.
But this represents 40 hours at the moment.
Right.
So if it comes back, then the whole budget will come down apparently because you won't need to be open 40 hours. But once we reach that magic number, it's gonna go back up.
We have
So
no choice.
anybody got any idea when that goal might be clicked over?
When the place at Rutland Heights gets built.
Yeah.
Okay, all right,
It
well,
really just depends on population, but
It was 90, or
The
90,
96 right now.
96,
Yeah. I will,
400 more people.
Yes, but-
96, 400,
but I-
96, 40 or something was
New
it.
houses are going up on the hill, so they're
Yeah.
going up.
And you won't be able to see it from the road, so.
but I will, yeah.
can't see from the
I
road,
will
okay.
say, I don't think it's an exact, 10,000, turn it on. I think the state will give the town time to get it going, but that time will eventually expire. I don't know the specifics of the requirements exactly, but
Perfect.
I don't think it's gonna be.
And at 37 hours a week, you have to get a waiver. correct?
We,
Correct.
at that
Every
point-
year you go for this waiver
Yeah.
to keep the library open and accredited so that we can borrow from other libraries within
And we
town.
didn't get a waiver this year. We've only gone for waivers twice.
Okay, so we didn't need a waiver for
We did not
37.
need a waiver this year. No, no. We'll only need a waiver once we reach population of 10,000, if the town hasn't been able to fund us for 40.
Okay,
Perfect.
All right?
thank you.
Good.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Carrie.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome. Let me know when you need to talk to me
Thank
again.
you, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks. Good luck, Sal.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Absolutely. Karen,
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure you know the answer to this question, but everything in this book is the needs-based budget.
That is correct.
Do you know, in most, all, or some cases, is the needs-based greater or less than the level service?
We haven't seen the needs base, the
Level service.
level service budget.
I would guess it's,
I would-
this is
yeah.
higher.
So the
in all
definition of
cases.
needs is what the department
Wants.
wants.
We should say wants and level service.
Well,
That'd be as
that's what I'm saying, so needs
Well, I
is based on
definitely
what they
think it would be
the needs
higher
are.
than a level funded.
Correct.
I don't know.
Level service.
necessarily the
Level service.
Well, I would think the needs-based budget is gonna be the
the
highest
highest
one
one.
that they, because they're putting everything in there they want.
Yeah.
Well,
Within reason.
Within, well,
they are calling this a need, so that
Right.
would be different than a
Correct.
wants,
Right, I would agree
I
with
would
that.
think that.
although it's probably the same.
Probably very cool.
In my
Within
experience-
reason. Because I'm sure there are some
It's
wants
probably
that the
very
fire
close.
chief would like that aren't in this budget because he can't get it and he
I'm
knows
sure
he's not
he put
gonna get
everything
it.
in the.
No, I've already had Karen once, so I know better. So.
Yes, sir.
Do we run a really strong risk of having to redo these all as soon as someone tells us we're going for level service versus
We really
needs?
are.
Yeah.
Gary is already working on the level service, right? Level service? Level funded, not level service.
So he has level service already?
No. It's supposed to be level service, not level funded. We could do
Level
level funded.
just take last year's budget, and here we are.
We could do
Yeah.
level
Right.
funded. Level service is what we were.
Yes, and he has not started yet, so we don't have to backtrack on that.
But in fairness, level funded is also going to be different than prior year as well. Because there's
Yeah.
a number of increases that are already.
Sure,
Yeah.
that's payroll
He's
related, but
absolutely right.
it's just contractual.
But
at
there'll
that
be other
point.
contractual
Well, not
things.
Well, you got
necessarily.
heat and
Why?
electricity
Because a
too.
level funded budget, if you may, something may increase, you may have to cut something else to pay that bill.
Well, you would contract with unions.
No, I mean, no, he's
Yeah.
right, you'd have to cut it somewhere
It
else.
still could be a level funded budget,
Yeah,
you
no,
have
you're
to
right.
find the money someplace else.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or increase revenues or whatever.
Right.
Who wants to have a bottle and can drive? We're only looking,
Okay,
we're only looking for $3 million.
I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Hey, after the
Exactly.
Super Bowl next Monday.
There you go.
It's a lot of bottles.
Okay, Seth,
Good evening.
it's all you.
Well, thank you for having me this evening. Thank you to Tamika for putting this all together. On, I think, Thursday or Friday, I submitted to Tamika to resend out the entire fire department budget packet. Should look like this. It's pretty lengthy. It's like 36 pages long. Goes into great detail on every line item where every dollar is spent on each category. What you have is the fire department needs-based budget. In page 2 of that document, you'll see a level service line, which is in the salmon color. That would be if we were to continue operating as we are today. As you said, with contract increases and just general cost of inflation related items that are out of our control. Obviously, as you know, we operate an ambulance service. We operate 3 ambulances. We staff 2 ambulances 24 hours a day. Ambulance revenue has increased dramatically over the last 4 years by almost $200,000 increase. So the increase in ambulance revenue is I can directly relate it to not only an increase of call volume, but we're able to answer the calls that are coming in because of the federal grant that we got for more staffing.
Yeah.
So the federal grant for more staffing expired February 1st of this year. So now the town is paying for those 3 individuals 100% of their salary. So those 3 individuals' salary is less than the $200,000 in increase. So I was asked to increase revenue to cover their costs by the time the town had to pay for it, which we have. There are other avenues that we've aggressively gone after. We've acquired a municipal agreement with the town of Ocam to provide ambulance service to them. They pay us, this year it'll be $27,000, plus we bill their residents for any medical call that we take. So that also helps in the increase in funding as well. We've gone after CPE funding, and this is basically Medicaid and Medicare funding allowances. We have a firm that comes in, audits our books, and petitions the federal government to give us additional money to offset the burden of Medicaid costs to our community. This year we're anticipated in receiving $99,000 in addition that we haven't in the past. So we're aggressively, leveraging anything we can to generate as much revenue as we can. We anticipate ambulance revenue between these 3 funding to be close to $600,000. And if you look at the overall fire department budget between fire and EMS, it almost covers 50% of the entire operation of the service. So that's if you were to, people look at, the ambulance and the fire department at 1.3 million, that is being paid by the taxpayer, but they remember, I'm not allowed to show at town meeting the revenue side to offset it.
Right.
So really what's coming from the tax levy is about 700,000, not the 1.3. But people just need to be aware of that.
Without a doubt.
One of the other pages I did a bar graph per capita spending, surrounding towns. Right now Rutland is just about $130 per person for fire and EMS services. The biggest spender in the area is Paxton at close to $225 per person. So we're second to the bottom, next to Ocam.
How big is Ocam?
1,900. So, I did a complete wage matrix for you to see, as this one here. You may or may not know this. Obviously, the full-time staff is covered by a union agreement. The on-call part-time staff do not fall under any wage matrix in this town. They've never been classified in the wage study, so there's an independent study that was done utilizing all of Worcester County fire departments, and we basically have set their rates based on the average in the area. Each year, we increase that base to keep up with, not only to keep up with the union as much as we can, but to try to keep their pay at a reasonable rate to entice people to join as well.
Question for you on that, the wage matrix. You
Yep.
have 1 new basic, 2 new medics.
Yep,
And you have the dates as 10/1, 9/1,
Yes.
and 10/1 and 9/1 of 22.
yeah. When this was put together back in September,
Yep,
we had some people leaving,
yep,
and I didn't have the names
perfect.
because they haven't accepted positions. They have now, and those
Okay.
rates are correct.
Okay, so the 3 are filled.
They are filled.
And they are not new people, these are just replacements of
Correct.
people who left.
Absolutely.
That's all I want to
Yep.
make sure of.
Yep, absolutely. There's been a lot of talk about turnover in public safety personnel. We kind of went back so I've been here since 2010, so in 12 years, we've replaced 12 full-time staff in 12 years. So that's only 1 a year, that's not crazy. But in the last 10 months, we've replaced 5 people. And we can contribute it to a lot of factors. A couple things is the pandemic really was a eye-opening experience to a lot of people, and it was very draining on people to the point where I had 2 individuals completely leave the fire service completely, and they wanted out. Burnout, they were done. They wanted no part of it anymore and went on to the public sector. Some other members left our department to go to other departments, bigger departments, for further advancement, better schedules, more money. But there's a lot of outside factors. Everyone can say, we don't pay enough. Well, I think we pay very well. I think our pay rate is competitive. I think that says a lot to the commitment that the town has put in our staff. But I'm competing with Westboro and Holden and some of these bigger towns that have built brand new facilities and have a lot of these people live there 24 hours a day. They basically, it's their home away from home, and they're getting more better environment to live in. If you go to the public safety building now, you're getting rained on because of roof leaks or this and that. It's just not a great environment as far as what you're living in per se. So we're losing people to other outside factors like that. In each year, as we come into this year, this town has always struggled with the budget. And that is, I won't say demoralizing to the individuals, but every year it's, put in front of them is there's no money, there's no money, there's no money. And, in the end, I think the town does very well, and we at least get by with what we need to do to get the job done. But if you can go to another town and you don't have to worry about money, it's just, you have a sense of security in your job. So I think that's another factor as well. That being said, pass these around, Darren, if you want. This is basically, so if you don't have to read the whole thing, it's basically just a summary of everything. Pretty much, a lot has changed. A couple things that really has. I'm entering a new 3-year contract with the Board of Selectmen. Hopefully we'll finish negotiating that and have it signed tomorrow night. So these numbers are in flux and may change, obviously lower, not up. So, okay. So,
I'm like, really?
To pass these around?
Yes, take one and pass it along,
yeah.
Sorry.
just like in school.
So, again, as you may or may not be aware, this will be my last contract. I'll be retiring at the end of this contract. That's my intent at this point. I've enjoyed my
I'm gonna talk to you
career here.
later. We're gonna
So,
have you stay for another 6 or 8 years.
okay. Well,
You're still young.
Who in their right mind would want to pull the trigger as soon as you can? Oh my God!
I love the job.
80%.
Yeah, I enjoy the job very much. So basically, the fire chief salary, as I said, is contract in negotiations right now, and then that directly falls into the holiday wages will be adjusted quarterly to that. As you know, the town accepted one additional holiday this past year. So not only the union agreement, but all the non-union people get that additional holiday as well. On-call wages, this basically pays for fire calls only. This has nothing to do with EMS calls. This is to pay our on-call firefighters to come back to staff and augment the full-time staff to respond to fire calls, motor vehicle accidents, hazardous materials incidents. Right now we have a staff of 22 on-call individuals that are dedicated, that in the middle of the night they show up, in the freezing cold, as this weekend they show up, and for what we pay, the $38,000 is less than half of a full-time salary of one person. So what we're getting is a great return on our investment. If we could get more people involved, I would love to have staff of 40. But the days of people committing to a part-time on-call type of job with their work requirements, family commitments with raising a family, it's just very difficult. Whether you're an on-call or part-time firefighter, the state requires your level of training to be exactly the same as a full-time person. So you need as many hours at the fire academy as a full-timer does. And so these classes are held at night. And so when you come home from work, we're asking these people to leave their family 3 or 4 days a week for 6 months to get their certification. So that's a big commitment. So we have basically a small window between 18 and 24 to get people. The problem is, if we get them fully trained by 24, they either finish college, whatever, they have a family, then they can't afford to live in this town and they move away. The people that are moving into town are young families and they don't have the time to commit to this type of training unless they've had it in the past and are coming from another department. So that's where we're getting some people coming in the door, is they've been trained by another department and they're relocating to Rutland. It's very difficult. Clerical wages, go back 10 years ago, we used to have a part-time administrative assistant that worked in the fire department for 24 hours a week. That position's been cut year after year and is now, for several years we went without one completely, but the town, through its audit findings, because we generate money through permits, we needed to check some balances. I can't receive the money and turn it over. Someone else has to process the money, I sign it, and then it goes. So I get 8 hours a week, an administrative assistant. We share that individual with the police department. It's one individual that works for both police and fire. I just pay for 8 hours a week of that individual.
That's ridiculously low numbers.
I have the biggest staff, both full-time and part-time combined, than any other department in town. I have to do my own payroll and all my bills myself, where other departments have full-time or additional staffing. I'm not complaining. We get it done,
But it's just how it
it's
is.
just how it is. I would love at some point when this individual retires in the future that both the police and us reevaluate and look at some different options for that position. As you know, purchase services basically covers a big piece of our budget. So obviously, purchase services is basically our vehicle maintenance program. As you know, we came to the fall town meeting looking for additional funds because of vehicle repairs that were needed. Our vehicle maintenance program, right now, I'd like to get it up to $25,000 to service 10 full-size pieces of equipment. We have state inspection stickers that need to get done. We're required by NFPA and OSHA to do pump testing of all of our trucks and ladder testing of the aerial ladder and our ground ladders. So that program comes up to $28,930. Radio equipment maintenance, basically we have radios and all the apparatus with portable radios. $1,000 basically covers batteries. Equipment maintenance, as you know, we carry a lot of specialized pieces of equipment. Jaws of Life requires annual servicing at $1,000 a year. We have multiple chainsaws, portable pumps, that's $750 a year. Our self-contained breathing apparatus, the Scotty Air packs that we wear, are required to be flow tested by OSHA standards each year, and the pressurized bottle is required to be hydrostatic tested every 5 years. And this is our 10th year, so this will be our second hydro testing coming up this year. That's $3,000. A compressor that fills these bottles. As you know, the town capital planning approved the purchase of a new air compressor that is 22 years old currently. That is on order. That's being funded through ARPA funds. So that should be in place probably by April. So that actual piece has gone way down compared to what it was in the past. Hose testing, all of our hose, regardless of size, needs to be tested to NFPA standards. We hire an outside company that comes in, they spend an entire day and pressure test everything and record everything. That's $3,500. All these things are point valued based on ISO. So our ISO rating is what your insurance company rates your homeowner's fire insurance at. So everything we do that we can generate paperwork and a inspection trail, we need 3 consecutive years in all these categories to get 100% credit for these things. So we've been doing very well with that. Our outside
In the end, regardless of the ISO rating, the fact is, if, God forbid, you need the fire department to come to your house, you want to make sure the stuff that you've got works.
Service contracts, we pay for scheduling software at $3,300 a year, and we pay for a policy manual that meets OSHA and all the federal requirements as far as employment. So I have a total of 38 people on staff that I have to do policies and procedures with. They need to sign off on them, and we need to track that they've received all the policies, and this is all done electronically, and they can access any policy procedure on their phone.
And that's
So
just for the
anytime-
fire department?
Just for the fire department. So when we issue a new one, they get alerted on their phone, they read it, they acknowledge it, and then it gets stored in their record, so.
Does that also include all of the town's policies, or are these just specific
So,
policies for you?
like the sexual harassment policy, electronic policy, a few other harassment policies, those are all incorporated in. They basically refer to town policy,
Okay.
and then they're attached. So
Perfect.
it's our way of tracking it internally. It helps us legally to defend any type of.
And you do that every year?
We do. This is our second year that we've been doing it. So. Cell phone, we have currently right now, my contract pays me an annual stipend for my personal phone. This is considered a public request item, so anything I do on it is basically be able to comply. Our IT guy sets up my phone. I just didn't want to carry two phones. Each year we're required to fit test, so our self-contained breathing apparatus, the masks that we wear, have to be fit tested to your face, so we make sure we're not getting any cancer-causing environment that we're breathing. So that's done annually as well. So basically, purchase service account, what we would really need is $50,000 a year to fund that. Currently, we're funding it at 25.1. This year, with what was transferred into that account at the fall town meeting, we're spending $43,000 currently this year. So, supplies, not much has really changed there. Office administrative expenses, there's general office supplies of $1,500. This is basically anything that happens in the fire station. So basically, any computers or anything up there that need to be done for training purposes is paid for up there. Anything in my office and the administrative piece is paid for in the group purchasing under public safety. We'll get to that after. Custodial services, this is basically supplies for washing and keeping the equipment clean at $1,000. The only increase into the vehicle, oil and filters and tires, obviously is if anyone's gone and bought tires this winter, the price of tires are absolutely crazy. So oil and filters for all the trucks is $3,000. Tires, we increased it up to $3,000. We had to replace 4 tires on the ladder this year at a cost of $4,800 for 4 tires. So it's technically not enough, but it's enough to get us by. We don't need to replace tires every year, so it's not a big deal. DEF fluid, batteries, and miscellaneous parts that the DPW puts on, that's $13,000 total. Training, supplies and books and registration, $1,000, so that's $16,500 for supplies. We're currently at $13,000, so it's not a big increase. Other charges, training, in-state, out-of-state training for myself at $1,500. This would allow me to be able to go to conferences, whether it's the New England Fire Chiefs Conference or the International. It's never been, in the last 12 years I've been here, it's been zero funded. So I've had to go on my own dime. Training expenses in professional development, that's for the firefighters. That $1,500 basically pays for us to rent a Worcester burn building down on Grove Street. We actually rent that facility for an entire weekend. And we actually do live fire training in there in a controlled environment. Dues and subscriptions, we're a member of the Fire Chiefs Association of Massachusetts, National Fire Protection Association, Massachusetts Fire District 8, which is Northern Worcester County. And we also pay for our online brush burning permit fees through that as well. So that's a total of $6,000. And currently, we are paying $4,000 in that line item. Additional equipment, boy, I made a list of all kinds of stuff that should be replaced due to wear and tear and age of things. This basically has been level funded at $5,000. We've been utilizing and leveraging grant funding resources through the Department of Fire Service, through the Volunteer Fire Council, which would be through DCR and the Federal Fire Council, to leverage. Some of them are matching grants, so if we put up some money through this, we're able to get 50% of it back. So our buying power has increased, and so we've been doing that over the last several years, and we've been making some pretty decent progress. Replacement equipment, basically, this covers our turnout gear, the gear that the individual firefighters wear. They can't be shared, they're actually sized to the individual. They last 7 years is their shelf life. All the full-time firefighters have 2 sets themselves. Basically, if anyone's been following the news and the stuff that's going on in Boston Fire, and the cancer rates in the fire service is out of control. And a lot of it has to do with turnout gear not being washed and cleaned on a regular basis. And the stuff that obviously in the environment that we're in is toxic as well. The last 2 years, this money has been cut for the budget, and the select board voted to utilize opera funds last year to basically cover the last 2 years that were cut. So we are making some progress on that. We're just asking to get this back in as a line item. Replacement hose. We've been slowly replacing our aging hose within the department. That's $3,500 a year. And right now, a length of 5-inch hose. And this is, if anyone ever seen us at a fire, you'll see this great big red hose on the road. Is basically our above ground water main that brings water to the fire. So whether it's within the hydrant district or just outside the hydrant district, this above ground water main will flow in excess of 1,000 gallons per minute, but is now costing $100 per foot. And currently right now we have over 3,000 feet. So that's $30,000 to replace it. We're replacing some of the 5-inch hose that were purchased back in 1999 when the ladder arrived. So we're at just over 20-something years. So every year that it gets pressure tested, the stuff that's failing, we're replacing. And then we've been replacing some of the smaller hose that we actually go into the building with as well. So that's at $17,000. Currently this year it's at $7,000. So the $10,000 basically is for the turnout gear. Emergency management budget. This is probably the biggest change. A lot of things over the last 3 years during the pandemic. It was quite clear that the fire chief serves as emergency management director, and to work both jobs in a long, committed national disaster or local disaster, you can't wear both hats. You can't do both jobs effectively. So we're looking at to try to alleviate some of that burden. And now that we're up to 12 full-time staff, I have no deputy chief within the department. I was the last full-time deputy before I was promoted to chief 6 years ago. The union in the town took the deputy chief's position out of the union. So it would be a management supervisory position. The only caveat that they did that is I can promote someone from within the union into that position, but I can't eliminate a union position. We funded that at $105,000. Again, this was a needs-based, and the Board of Selectmen are aware of this, and we've been aggressively applying for federal grants to fund that as well. The goal is, if we could get a deputy chief in place this year and it's the right individual, over the next 3 years, there can be some succession planning and moving forward towards my retirement, that this person would be able and comfortable to step in the role. Other charges and expenses, basically, each year, MEMA comes out with an emergency management planning grant. It's a 50% match, and this $3,500 is what our town's match is. So we leverage that to get $7,000 worth of equipment for the emergency management department. So that pretty much covers that.
Can I-
Sure.
This job,
Mm-hmm.
can you give a little bit of exactly what they do? And you're telling me now you do this
Yes,
and fire chief?
correct.
Okay.
Yep. So basically, obviously, this would be a deputy fire chief's position, and they would assume they would be the assistant emergency management director to assist me in planning and implementing the community emergency management plan for the community, and keep that current and up to date and on file with MEMA. It would also assist with management and span and control and supervision of all the full-time staff as well. It would be an additional person during the day, because during the day is our weakest link, because all of our part-time on-call people work full-time jobs and are out of the community. So this would give us an additional person on the floor every day, providing ambulance and fire service to the community as well.
So
this
they
person-
would go out on service calls?
Absolutely.
This
Yep.
would be required to be a EMT?
Correct,
paramedic?
firefighter EMT at a
Correct.
minimum. Paramedic would be preferred, but obviously, yep. So it was basically, it's not just an office person, it is a, on-the-ground worker as well.
What is the 1,500 assistant wages that's there?
So currently, right now, it's been level funded at 1,500 for the last several years. Basically, we've held a wage line item under the emergency management. So if there's ever a disaster, a snowstorm, blizzard, we need to bring ice storm, that we need to bring in additional staff. We pay people out of that account, and we deficit spend that account because if it becomes a federal or a state local disaster, we can petition that to leverage MEMA to get reimbursed for that. So that's why people would be paid out of that account.
So that's almost a placeholder, because
Correct.
$1,500 can't
Doesn't
get you
count
much.
Doesn't count, yeah. So, again, it's just basically, it created the line item for us that we didn't have in the past. It allows us to, again, go after money. As you know, obviously during the pandemic, we had a lot of firefighters, police officers, everyone out sick, and we backfilled those positions with overtime. All that overtime costs were covered and fully reimbursed through either the CARES Act or through FEMA directly. And all that paperwork was my responsibility to file, and that money has been completely come in and received back to us. So that's done.
So, the deputy chief,
Yes,
a non-existent deputy chief,
yep.
that would be filled internally?
It would be posted internally first.
Okay.
Yep.
Is the likelihood to come internally?
Potentially, yes.
And you are not allowed to not fill the union job
Correct.
if the union person takes that
Correct.
position.
Correct.
So
We have to create another full-time position technically, is what this comes down to, yes.
okay.
So you said if the person was right, it could be succession planning.
Correct.
We would want to ensure that that person would be right, correct?
Absolutely.
I was gonna say we wouldn't, I mean, if
Oh,
within the
right.
first
There's no-
90
there's no
days, somebody
guarantee that
doesn't
this
work out,
person-
goodbye.
This person would have, right.
The town never does that anyways. They don't think that through.
Right.
I mean,
What
I'm
are the
just thinking, if
selectmen
you're
doing?
gonna spend all that
Wait.
time in, I mean, I'm thinking that'd be fantastic,
Oh, then-
3 years to have you teach them all the nuances of this.
You're not in the town of Rutland. They don't think that far ahead.
We can hope.
I mean, it's I was fortunate enough to had worked as fire chief in another community
Right.
before I came here. I had a great opportunity to work under Tommy, before he left, and I got to know the town and learn the town through him, and that was very beneficial. In my having that knowledge, I offered as much help as I could to the next chief for that short amount of time, as best I could. But you got to have the right person for this job, for this community, and I think the community deserves that level of attention to make sure that you set someone up to be successful.
So that's Darren's example number one. That total rat show that they pulled in the middle of when Tommy left, through Seth and all that. So it's real well and good that we're thinking the succession plan is going to work, but it's not going to work in the town of Rutland.
Well, we could be lucky.
Anyway, onto the ambulance budget. Ambulance wages, obviously full-time wages and overtime wages is really what makes up the biggest piece of the ambulance budget. Full-time wages basically covers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so basically, just to give you an example of what we do, is we have 3 people on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, on the overnight, from 7 at night to 7 in the morning. During the day, we staff 4 during the day, 7 days a week, from 7 in the morning to 7 at night. So it's 4 during the day, 3 on the overnight. Contract says we can go down to a 2-man minimum. So, because it takes 2 people to drive an ambulance. So,
It does.
yes. So.
Takes one to drive, one to sit in the back
Okay.
with the patient.
Yeah. You have a question?
No, he was waving at the
okay.
gentleman out there.
Okay. So it's okay. So that's basically what encompasses the full-time wage account for those level of hours currently. On Saturdays, Saturdays is their odd day. So right now I have 3 groups that work 2 days each a week, so that's 6 days a week. So that leaves the 24-hour block on Saturday available that we utilize our part-time on-call staff to keep them involved and can keep them current and keep them working alongside some of the full-timers. This has helped with morale. It has kept them involved. And I think it's helped with any type of division between full-time staff and part-time staff. So that's helped very well. So that's what covers that block on Saturdays. Overtime, probably the biggest jump. Currently we're at 65,000 to 100,000. And I'll give you a brief example of this. Right now, obviously they're entitled to time off, vacations, sick time, personal time, sick incentive time, all of this time off that is granted under the policies of the town. We only backfill 30% of their time off. So this year, in 2022, we gave away 100 ambulance calls to another town, or other towns, other surrounding towns, because we were already on another call, and because we only had 3 on during the day, we didn't have 4 on during the day, we couldn't staff that second ambulance call. So if you were to take that 100 calls at a 50% collection rate, we gave away $100,000 to other community in revenue. So I'm not asking, you can't plan for everything, you can't staff for everything, but I'm just asking that we slowly creep towards, at least getting to, a minimum of 3 during the day and 2 on the overnight. But we're slowly having difficulty getting there. So that's where that number comes from. Purchase service account, vehicle maintenance for the 3 ambulances at $10,000, radio maintenance at $250. Service agreement, this is basically what we pay to have an outside company come in and service our cardiac monitors, our stretchers, our IV pumps, those type of specialized equipment that are required to be done. $1,250 for outside lecturers to come in to teach. Billing company, we pay 5% of whatever we collect. So again, that's a number, that's a shot in the dark. It could be great, some years we collect way more, and we're looking for some money to pay that bill at the end of the year. ALS and step fees, this really hasn't been funded in the past. This would be if the ambulance was staffed at the EMT only level, we needed paramedics from another town, they would send us a bill for $300. But that hasn't happened in several years. So that's $47,500, and we are at $42,500 right now. Supplies account, oil, filter, and tires up to $5,000. That's just because we're going through tires a lot more frequently due to the mileage. Medical supplies have increased dramatically. The cost of medications are out of sight.
Tell me about it.
And it's just crazy. We've either had national shortage on certain medications. It's not like we can get a generic. We carry 52 different drugs, medications on the ambulance that we give our patients. And I'm not going to get to a point where we ration medications. It's, if the call comes in and the patient needs a medication, they're getting the medication, they're getting treated to the highest level of care. We'll figure out how to pay the bill later. But again, it's one of those things that costs, where we're seeing dramatic cost increases in medications.
So
Is some of that reimbursable by insurance?
It is, but again, all of the ambulance revenue that comes in goes to the general fund, so it never offsets this budget. So as the ambulance revenue goes up to the general fund, this budget needs to go up as well in order, because we're generating the money, and there's obviously, as you're generating the calls and the money, there's generating costs associated
It helps the
with
bottom line, it just
Right.
doesn't go one for one.
Right, exactly.
He can't use the credit.
Right, yes, correct. Yeah,
But
This isn't a revolving fund.
right.
are we getting dollar for dollar
No, no.
reimbursement through insurance?
No,
Probably not.
No, probably not. And again, it all depends on what your insurance is. Obviously, a Medicaid patient is going to be paid at a much lower rate. If you get into a motor vehicle accident, we're going to get 100% paid from a motor vehicle accident. If you have Blue Cross Blue Shield and you're a senior and you've got a supplemental on, Medicare on top of that, then it's usually covered all of it. So.
Is it similar for the ambulance overtime in that actually generates some revenue, but we don't and can't show it here? If we didn't have to turn down those calls you were talking about?
Yes. Again, the more money you invest in ambulance service, there is a benefit on the other end as far as generating some money. We proved that by adding the additional staffing that we're able to handle the increased call volume and more calls, we're generating more money. But again, it's very difficult to, you look at this number, we're generating $600,000, it's costing $1 million to operate the ambulance. You gotta remember the dual role. And I wish this was all one umbrella, one department, because we are one department, but it was always set up as two individual budgets. That the EMTs and the paramedics, they're firefighters as well. So you could basically put that on the fire side of the house if you wanted to split it out as well. But
Is there a reason by state law that we can't have a revolving account to keep that $600,000 within the fire department? Or could we create that?
you can create it, it's a local option. It can be reserved for appropriation, receipts reserved for appropriation account. Money
I don't
comes
think
in-
it's a true revolving account.
Right, it's not a true revolving.
It's just that when it comes in, it's reserved
Yeah.
for certain.
And then at time you voted out to cover expenses.
So you're taking the
Numerous
option
towns
away
do it, there's a whole bunch of
But
different
yeah,
ways.
you can make it an enterprise fund, which that's just another accounting.
You could run into an issue where if they make more money than they're spending, if that were to happen,
Correct.
you couldn't use it for other things
Right,
unless
with
you
it.
got that approved.
Correct.
So it's
Yeah.
not necessarily a bad thing to have in general.
Right, yeah.
Just not so great for Seth.
Well,
He was trying to justify the million.
I mean, the argument would be
So,
going
no.
forward is some of that money should be earmarked towards replacement of the ambulance instead of doing a debt exclusion every 5 years, to buy an ambulance. But analysis of other charges, $5,700. Basically, this covers really all of our training and outside of, association and fees to the Department of Public Health that are required each year. We have a medical control physician through UMass. They oversee all of our medical calls to make sure that we're treating our patients accordingly. They're the ones that are on the radio with us, giving us direct orders for certain medications and interventions. We're required to pay for recertification fees for our employees, so that's in there. Uniforms, the individuals get uniform allowance, and we also have money in there to cover our per diem and part-time staff as well. So that's $25,000, and I think that's, well, pretty much only increased $2,000. Equipment outlay, that's basically just to buy new equipment on the ambulance. That's only gone up $1,000. So if you see it, if you want to see what my level service budget is, that's what's in the salmon color. The yellow is what we just discussed for the needs base. So other than that one position, really is not much changed from the needs to the level service. If you want to go into more detail, if you enjoyed reading over the nice cold weekend, you got a chance to read everything on our capital plan requests.
Well, we weren't supposed to use that to start the fire?
Yeah,
When we go-
yeah. So I do submit a capital plan each year. This gave you all the backup documentation, so if you wanted to see what's coming down the line and what our needs are. And we have a complete list of all of our equipment on the department, what the costs associated with those are. The final thing is the public safety building accounts. I think Tamika passed that around. Basically, the public safety building falls under me to manage the purchase service and supplies account. That's 192, 5200, anything with 005 belongs to the public safety building. Basically, the increases directly associated with both purchase services and supplies have to do with energy costs. It's either the electric bill or it's the oil bill. That's really where the energy costs have hit us the most. Last year, we were short in the public safety building due to increased electricity and fuel costs. The select board chose to use ARPA funds to cover all energy costs that were overages for last year, and they put money aside to cover any overages for this current year because we were so late into the year of budgeting that we didn't address the problem in any of the building accounts for the higher cost of energy going forward. So what you're seeing as far as the request for all the building accounts are really driven by energy costs. So that's really all I have. Any questions?
I got a stupid little question.
Sure.
So you gave us this.
Yes.
This basically replaces this?
No. That basically
It's more detailed.
more detailed of
But there's
this.
a difference, and I know it's little, but in the 220 account of about $1,400.
Oh, it has to do with that line item here, the secretary's salary,
Gotcha.
is what is the change,
Okay.
because of the matrix change.
So,
He
So
did this
this
back in
number's-
September before that was done.
Correct, yes, yep, yep,
So this number I could push up
correct, yeah,
to make it.
yep, yep,
Thank you.
yep,
So, capital equipment
yep.
and facilities. So if I read this right, you're gonna be, your wish is to go for $2.45 million for a ladder truck and a new, study on the fire station.
Yeah. The ladder truck this year is coming up on 24 years old. We've, over the last several years, we've applied for federal funding to replace it. We are still pending through the AFG grants through FEMA right now. I called our regional rep. We are on the brink of getting awarded if there's enough money.
If there's enough money, great.
Yes. So we're meeting their criteria. Everything looks good. He says what's driving the issue is when I did it, 18 months ago, it was 22 years old.
Right.
So he told me, even though it's still pending this year right now, which should close in the next couple weeks, the enrollment period or to reapply closes this Friday. So he's like, reapply.
Okay.
So basically, I reapply through everything. If we are awarded, it wouldn't be for the full amount. Obviously, we would have to be some matching funds similar to what we did with the ambulance. But I would think any federal funding would be close to $1 million that would come. So again, we won't see that until fall town meeting time if awards start coming. But again, I'm aggressively pursuing any federal and state resources to leverage the best we can.
You always have.
On the
Always
station
have.
needs, obviously, you go around town, everyone, even, capital planning people say, oh, we built the public safety, we did this, we built that, and you really didn't build a public safety building. You attached a police station onto a 1975 fire station and called it a public safety building, and did really nothing to improve the existing 30-plus-year-old facility. So there really needs to be something aggressively looked at. I know there are a lot of other building needs that are way in front, senior center, town hall, I totally understand. But there needs to be a discussion at some level of what to do, whether we renovate the existing facility and build a substation down at Four Corners in that side of town, because the growth in the future is going to be on that side of town. Do we do that type of model? Do we completely renovate or tear down the existing fire station portion and build a new side? Do we add on to it the existing one? Those are the type of things that really need to be discussed. When the building was built in 75 and 76, there was no full-time staff, so there's no living quarters, there's really no shower facilities for male and female workers. They share showers now in locker room, so it's just problematic. Fire trucks that were built in the 70s are a lot smaller than they are now. So I won't say we've outgrown the facility. I think our fire trucks have evolved into more multi-purpose vehicles that we've consolidated into a bigger truck to carry more tools. But again, I probably won't see this before I retire, but this is something that needs to aggressively be looked at.
So didn't we start, or didn't the town start a capital plan where they were looking at billions of dollars to build, fix, manage these buildings?
Yes, we have the 5-year plan that the CIPC gave us, and then we
Yes.
have the plan the facilities management plan the facilities management plan that Ron did.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's done about a year ago.
So, but that's there. Is anybody doing anything with, is Ron in charge of that? We go down with
Is Ron in charge of that?
Come back and,
No.
no. But
You can if you'd like.
No, I don't think so.
I don't recommend it.
Yeah, but do we have, is anybody looking at that? Anybody doing anything with it? Do we have anybody that's responsible for that?
Yes and no.
Yes.
I think there's several people that are playing a role, and I think when we get a full-time town administrator, that person would be responsible for making sure that these things are addressed. Because right now, the interim town administrator really does not have the time with the time that he's allotted in the office.
And I totally understand that. And I would expect that the new town administrator would pick up a lot of that responsibility.
I think some department heads are making sure some of the stuff gets done too over the time, but
And I think a lot of the focus right now is fixing the building envelopes that we have now
Yes.
to keep further damage from happening. I think that's the focus right now.
Right.
yeah.
Whether it's roofs, siding, windows,
Yep. That's a
water
thing.
infiltration issues to stop some of
But
the
is there
damage.
enough
That's all the
funding
stuff
there
we've seen.
to be able to solve that or mitigate that stuff?
We're slowly working on it, and I think we addressed a lot, not this fall time meeting, meeting before, we put money aside for a new HVAC system for this building,
Yep.
for the roof mounted stuff.
The community
The
center.
Community center roof, so
Yep.
we've slowly started to plug away with some things.
Still plenty left to do.
Yes.
The fire department, I think, is a pretty important pretty important building.
We gave them some nice new buckets.
Yeah, it's, again, it's a, there's a lot of other needs that are just, I feel are just as important. Of course, I would love to advocate for the fire service completely, but there are other significant needs in this community as well, and there's gotta be a balance, and I understand that.
But it'd be nice to go into the fire chief's office and ask him a question about his budget without tripping over the bucket on the floor that the water's dripping into.
We're walking into the lobby and seeing the buckets.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, forget going into Seth's office, walking into the lobby and
Yeah.
seeing the buckets. I'm like, oh, this
it's
is
a proud
nice.
moment for the county. I mean, it's.
Well, you stated that we are theoretically, and you stated it, that we're losing people to other towns because of our facilities.
That's right.
And in my experience, when you lose somebody and you bring somebody in new, it always
Cost
costs
money,
money.
absolutely.
So really, by not addressing that, we are adding to our budget and personnel every year, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's not
It's not the
it's
right
not
way.
helpful
Yeah.
at all.
Yep.
So there's a problem there that needs to get fixed as well, and that would be somewhat fixed by a new facility of some sort,
Right.
or at least living quarters.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So Seth had made mention of the fact that he can't express his revenues at the town meeting.
That's correct.
You can't show them. You can probably bring it up, but you
Sure, you
can't show
can
it.
do it. Any of those revenues that we
Yes.
have on our revenue sheet can be,
Well,
if it is a question on the town meeting floor, if somebody says, why is your budget $1 million? Well, it's $1 million, but we also bring in X amount of dollars, and
so
that happens all the time.
So is that true?
Yes.
Is that
I mean,
true? That is true.
Okay. So if that's the case, why would this budget be necessarily that?
We
Why are we
can't,
looking at this budget as a whole and not as a net?
because the funds that he brings in go to the general fund. They can be used anywhere. It does not automatically offset his stuff. It automatically goes to top line to offset everybody's stuff. And the reason why it's always been discouraged, greatly discouraged, is the minute you start opening up the revenue discussions on the floor, trying to explain a cherry sheet on the floor, we'll never go home.
Okay.
It's hard enough with all the help that we get from Division of Local Services to how to read a cherry sheet.
I think.
Explaining that to the 200 people there would be a very difficult thing.
So I think the problem becomes if we get into a situation where there needs to be significant cuts in all departments across the board, significant, which, yes, it comes off the expense sheet, but it's also going to impact the
The top
income
line.
sheet.
Right.
So it's almost gonna, you're basically beating each other up, and you're not gonna get any further, you're gonna make this, we're gonna give poor service, but we're gonna have less money as well, so,
Right.
Basically punching yourself.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
it's hard.
Right.
It's a balance.
Right. But it's not a good balance if you
Right.
end up making cuts to something.
Right.
It's something about, cutting off your nose to spite your face.
Right,
kind
it's the
of
same,
thing.
it's the same reason why a 10% cut here would hurt us more,
Yeah.
hurts this,
Right.
so that's the thing, a 10%, when we said flat 10%, this will affect us in multiple ways, as a smaller department, 10% would, deplete them, so it's not as easy as just saying, here we go.
Do you think that you would know, if you got the grant, some portion of money for the ladder, by the annual town meeting?
No, we wouldn't know until fall town meeting. And we usually do capital stuff in fall, anyway.
But we can do it anytime.
But we've been
Right.
good about putting more
Yeah.
money aside for the capital appropriation.
And the other issue, as you know, is supply chain issues. It's just been horrific.
Cost us $62,000.
Yep. So, perfect example, a ladder truck right now, if you would order it, is gonna be 3 years till it's delivered. 3 years. A fire truck is minimum of 2 years, and an ambulance is now 2 years. So the problem with that is I would say across the industry, you're seeing very significant inflation of costs because they don't know what the vehicle is going to cost to build 3 years from now. So it's a number, a pie in the sky number that manufacturers are throwing out there to try to protect their bottom line because they don't know what the market's going to do.
And what they can get.
Correct. So and so what's that done is it's driven the non-existent of acquiring used fire trucks because no one is getting rid of anything.
Right.
Because there's, people are holding on to everything now because they're either refurbishing older pieces to make them last another 5 to 10 years. So hopefully they can get through this.
Right.
But there's no used market. Very difficult to find something used.
So it's cheaper to repair than retail.
It is. I mean, I won't say it's cheaper, but it's a stopgap.
Yeah.
Well, it's a requirement if you can't get it for 3 years.
Right. Yeah. And again,
Yeah.
we've been putting.
Bucket brigade is not an option.
Yeah, we've been putting a lot of money into the ladder truck over the last several years, and it's becoming an expensive piece to operate. And we knew that when the town made that commitment in '99 that the town's growing, we needed it. Perfect example: we had a chimney fire during the cold weather over this weekend, and if anyone saw the pictures on our Facebook page, you see the ladder up to the roof, and guess what? It's just 5 feet too short. Because of everyone, our ladder is a 70-footer in length, and the problem is you just can't get the vehicle close enough to the homes because their driveways are so long, they're off the edge of the road, and you just can't. So when people say we need a 100-foot ladder, well, we don't have high rises, but you need that reach to get to the house, to get to the roof line. So those are the issues that we deal with. The other thing that you may want to consider that we found out this year is we had some significant damage within the public safety building due to water main breaks or frozen pipes or whatever. And last year, I think it was, that the insurance policy for our accident damage policy for our buildings, we chose to increase our deductible to try to lower the policy. So we went from a $2,500 deductible to a $5,000 deductible, thinking that was going to, save the world. But we didn't put any money aside in the insurance line item to cover any deductibles. So we're scrambling to find these deductibles within operating budgets, which are strapped to the max, and so it becomes problematic. Again,
That was
it's
a
something.
big oversight.
Yeah, it's yes, it
But we
sounds
didn't have any money to put it in there anyway.
Right.
right.
But I get it, but the fact is, you gotta put something. You can't not do anything.
Yeah,
We would have to find some of
I mean, we do that in our own.
Yeah.
Go like this over here.
I don't
Yeah,
think
exactly.
God, I don't have to
Yeah,
use this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So, Seth, I got a question about the Capital One,
Yep.
and then I'll be good, I think, is the engine one there,
yeah.
you've got it, it's a 2018, it's in fair, but you pushed it out another 10 more years.
Yeah.
Is that realistic? Or should it be like 5 years?
No, and engine one would go first.
Right, but you say it's fair right now,
Yeah.
and anything else on here that's fair, you go in the next couple of years.
Yeah. I mean,
But
I would say
it's
engine one
still-
is probably, it's used heavily now from mutual aid, so it goes to all mutual aid fires out of town. Engine two is probably used the most because it goes to all motor vehicle accidents. It's the first truck out the door to every call.
So I'm just wondering if we should put that back to 2028 or something instead of 2020.
Well, I
33.
think it comes down to, the goal is to get 30 years life out of an engine and 25 years out of a ladder. That's the goal. And it comes down to how well you maintained it over the life of the vehicle, and what your return on investment is. So
Okay.
if we maintain it, maybe, the next 5 years, put $50,000 into it and go through it and, needle blast the frame rail and, re-undercoat and repaint, the frame, get the rust and corrosion, do some maintenance, heavy maintenance like that to get it to stretch another 5-7 years. Absolutely, that's a good investment. It's just we don't have the resources in our own staff or DPW staff to, or they don't have the time to do it either.
Well, they're understaffed too.
Right, so, again, that would all have to be done and planned accordingly. Most towns at 15 years will refurbish a truck to get it to last another 10 to 15.
Okay.
So that's usually where we're at. As you know, we got a federal grant for a new ambulance. And because of, we had 2 years to spend the money, and we ordered it. Dodge canceled the order because they weren't gonna build the chassis, they weren't gonna give us a 23 chassis. We reordered in November for a 24 chassis. They canceled the order again because they're no longer building Dodge Ram 5500s for fleet service vehicles. As a regular person off the street, you can go buy one, but I can't buy one for an ambulance. They will not do that. Problem with that is that would push us beyond the 2-year window. It required us to look at different manufacturers for whatever they had in the pipeline being built. And because now it's several years newer from what we originally put our contract in, there was a cost increase, and the select board used ARPA funds to cover that gap. The ambulance is delivered, it's in town. It's in the process of having the radios and equipment swapped over. The 2008 ambulance will be returned to OCAM as it was originally their vehicle that we acquired through the contract of their service. So our oldest ambulance, the 2013, will be housed in OCAM and utilized to cover calls in their town by their staff. And we will utilize it as our backup to cover our 2 primaries that go out for service for any length of time, that we always have 2 ambulances. That's it.
Any other questions?
So, obviously, good conversation tonight, a lot of information. The only disappointing thing is we can't take, because each department has the same conversation, we can't take these conversations and encapsulate it in a way to be able to get that out to the community. You know what I mean?
Well, we have, what, 105 people on our Zoom? Oh, no, sorry. There we go.
But we could, we could maybe make a habit of posting on the news page, like the landing page of the town's website, to advertise that these meetings are posted on YouTube. And just making sure, like I always try to make sure that the minutes are ready for the next meeting, so I'm getting those posted on a regular basis. So I think if we maybe guide residents to where they can find this information, that will help. I think the challenge is you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink.
Well, and I think, Tamika, you're right. That's absolutely true. And it won't become of interest to anybody until we get to 2 weeks before the town meeting,
If then.
if then. But assuming that there are
When it
going to
becomes of
be...
interest is when they need something or want something and they can't get it because
Right.
the budget doesn't allow it. That's usually when it comes back.
Right. But then it's only the 1 or 2 people that are affected by it, and it's not the rest of the town that's reacting.
If you follow the DPW's Facebook page, you'll see there a lot of the questions, concerns that are brought to his attention, and he answers them.
I don't know how that's working for them, though. Sometimes that gets pretty heated against them.
I don't have Facebook, so...
Me either.
You should get it just to watch that show.
But it's, in the end, it's, department heads have to tell town residents what they can and cannot do.
Right.
That goes all the way back to when Tommy was there.
Right.
When he was a young man,
Oh,
first walking in.
Yeah, you made the highlights.
It's no different.
The 2022 reel, yeah.
No different.
It's always good.
My wife pointed out to me.
Yeah,
I too don't really use Facebook, but
yeah.
I'm glad I'm famous.
It'll be memorialized every year. It'll come up as the anniversary. you know.
Oh, good. Good.
But, well,
Glad
good
we
year.
included.
Unless you gotta burn something down this year to get back there.
So, like we said to Carrie, this isn't finalized yet, but we do appreciate your time and effort here.
But at least you do have my level service budget already, so.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
That was submitted in September too.
Thank you very much.
Perfect, thank you.
You've been through this a few times, huh?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Seth.
Thank you. Enjoy your evening.
You as well.
So do you have anything else?
I have a question.
Go for the question.
I brought it up last Tuesday or last Wednesday, whatever the last time we had the second. And right now, if they have an override, it's gonna be after the town meeting. Could someone explain to me what the benefit of that is and why we wouldn't want that before? I don't know if there's a better or worse way to do that.
Getting the information out so that the 200 or 300 people that come to the town meeting would actually understand what they're voting for. And by not voting for it, what they will be losing. Because no matter how hard we try to put it out on the town website, on the town sign, in the newspaper, putting up a banner, whatever we want to try to do, the fact is, the people who come to the town meeting are the ones that are going to have to get the word out, because they're the ones that show up to the town meeting.
But it makes a lot more work for us the way it is, in my opinion.
Okay,
Because-
so then the other side of it is, we put out everything on the town website, we put everything out in the paper. They don't understand what they're gonna lose, because you can have public information hearings, and you get the same 25 people, if that come.
Well-
We've gotta get the word out, and that's what Eddie Bracebridge always was, when he moved it, that was always the reason why, so that we could get the information out. Plus, the people that do all the work answer the questions at the town meeting.
So, Darren, do you think would it be your expectation that not having the town meeting after, could we have the town meeting after the vote?
We could switch it, but I'm just wondering if there's a benefit that's
What
doing
purpose
it.
would it do at that point? Why even have?
What purpose does it do right now?
Well, so I think to Karen's point, that if we have the town meeting and we
Do we
discuss
get
the
any
budget,
input
we're telling people, at least in the town meeting and on the TV, what it is that they should be, what their understanding should be of the budget. If we do it after the fact, nobody's gonna listen to it.
Well, all right, so here's a scenario. We go to town meeting.
Yeah.
And we vote this budget in, whatever the high number is,
Right.
whatever we want to call it. And then a week later, they vote against it. We immediately have to start having meetings to figure out where everybody's gonna, and how that's all gonna work. It's
Right.
gonna be a ton of work.
Right.
And we've already done that work before the town meeting comes.
We would have that done.
Yeah, but we don't know exactly what's gonna happen.
I've been through this several times where we've had budgets, and the only one that we were caught off guard was the year that Margaret took the hit of $1,500 on the floor to her bottom line, because we were off $1,500.
So you think that the way we're doing it,
It's the best way to get the most information out to the people who come to the town meetings.
Well, it's really the only way you can do it, because the override's a two-step process. So usually the warrant article or whatever is worded so that it says you're gonna do X amount of dollars, subject to a successful override vote. That's how you explain it to everybody. And when you're explaining it, the budget's gonna be $100, but if we get the override, it's gonna be the 150. Because that's what we really need. However, if it's a no, then it's the $100 is all you're gonna get. And that's the only way you get the information to people and explain what it is.
we're already looking at 2 point,
Right,
Something.
whatever it is.
3 point.
Yeah, so it's.
we're up to 3 now.
It was 3 last week.
Oh, I thought it was 2.7. Oh, it's 3 something.
And
Whatever.
going-
What's $1 billion?
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's really not a big of a deal at that point, but yeah.
So,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, so where I'm going with this, Tommy, is we're going into this with 3 million. So it's just gonna be a lot of work. And it's like trying to push a rope, because no matter what we do, if everybody's not united about it, and they're not necessarily said they're gonna be,
Right.
this is not, it's, okay,
You know, the thing is, the problem.
this is
that you have-
frustrating as,
I've been doing this for 11 years, so yes, I understand.
Right, and the
It-
difficulty-
It's painful. It's painful, but we don't have a choice because there's no other way to try to get the information out to the people who care to come to the meeting.
You know, in my conversation, my trip around town, I don't get anybody talking about the fire or the police, or, no one's complaining about that. The complaints that I hear is that the school is costing too much money. It's the school that's costing too much money. The school does a great job, and, you know, you gotta understand that the kids need some kind of structure for the education, and that costs money. But they parse it out. People just parse it out. They look at it and say, budget, government, and school. And wow, school is too much money. I was talking with somebody the other day, and they said, how much money is the school budget? $12 million. How much is the town budget? 24. You mean we're paying 50%? Well, yeah. It's the way it is. It's part of the contract that we have.
it's just,
It's actually more like 54 or 55.
It
I was
is.
gonna say, I thought it
But
was
the
57.
Exactly, no, exactly.
math was easy for me.
No, you're right, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
but I just,
But-
and we're not gonna beat the schools.
No, no.
No,
Oh,
because
well-
everybody complains about it, but yet at town meeting, there's enough people there to support it, because they want it for their,
Well, that's the people that go to town meeting.
right, for whatever, they go and they vote it through.
And we have to let those folks know that decide that they want that school money, know that they can't have this money. We can't give it to the fire department.
But to your
Police
point, most
department.
people don't care about that.
Well,
Until they need 'em.
until they,
Don't worry
to
about it.
Karen's point before, until they have to show up at the door, with the lights flashing and sirens on, you know, then nobody's gonna care about it. But the fact is, you need to let them know that because this happens, if this happens, then that's going to be your alternative.
Well, remember, we had to put together, you put together the PowerPoint. We got all the listing. If you vote for this is what's gonna happen.
Yep.
And that's the kind of stuff we've gotta get out there.
Yep.
But in the end, we have to kind of go through some of this stuff and just get some sort of an idea, and then from there,
To be honest, the like everything he just said, really the only thing by decreasing his budget back to what it was is him doing more work, which nobody in town cares about, even though they should, right?
Right.
And we all agree that, but nobody cares about that. And then $10,000 for the turn gear, so
Yeah.
the people in his department are gonna get sick if something happens.
Yeah.
They don't care about that either. I mean, they do, right?
they don't.
Like,
They're not gonna-
they do, but
Yeah.
that's not gonna motivate them to make any decision whatsoever.
Once they go into the
but the
voting
minute
booth,
we
then
say we're gonna take down the swing set in Memorial Field,
Yeah,
Well, I think that's the
So-
point, is to, you have to educate them on something that
Exactly.
motivates them.
So I guess my whole, I don't think it's our job to educate people a little bit, but it's not our job to be out there beating the drums, getting the information. These
I agree.
these departments have to do it on their own.
yes,
There was many times in the past, being on the fire department for 40-plus years, that when we wanted a fire truck and people told us that we couldn't get one, we did the legwork so that when we went to the town meeting, it passed. Now, that may have been a good thing or a bad thing, but I guess I go back to the old days on the fire department. When we wanted something, we educated everybody to do it.
Huh?
And Tommy was there with me, but I am so sick of us guys, this group, taking a beating around town because we're in, this year it's gonna be, oh, you either gonna increase my taxes
Yeah,
or, you know, or you're gonna cut so-and-so.
right.
And I think we've gotta tell these department heads in these departments that they gotta do their own legwork here. We'll be there to support
I've
them,
been saying that for years.
but they don't.
They are the front lines. They're the ones with the people coming to the door. They have to speak up.
We have one police officer that lives in the town of Rutland right now. So it's hard for them, right? They haven't got anybody. We don't have, I bet you 50% of the firemen don't live in the town of Rutland anymore.
Yeah.
It's not like in the old days when we went there, it was, I could look at Karen Narwhal and say, I'm the guy coming to your house at midnight,
Right.
or whatever. They don't, it's different now,
They're
right?
required to?
What's that?
They're not required to live in town?
Nope.
No.
Only within a certain mile radius.
So it's a different
Yeah.
mentality. But we all went to fight back in the
you
day.
were
It was
all
like volunteerism and, you know, all that stuff. And that's all gone now.
So the only way that happens is if you require, even if they're not living in town, if you require them to go out and just do it door to door. But now you're asking them to spend more time. This is more money that they have to spend because they're going to want to get paid to go door to door
Amen.
and predict or sell their services or
Well,
Whatever you want to do.
However you want to say it, right? They're going to want to do that. But I think it's a sad, they've got to get out there and beat the drum.
But I don't think going door to door really does as much anymore as it used to either. There's
No,
better
no,
ways
you're
to
right.
go about it.
No, I think-
More
You got
cost-effective
Facebook,
ways.
you got
Yeah.
social media.
I mean, the highway department's getting their point across because you can't go over a road without hitting a pothole, right? I mean, so.
But it's speaking to the people who come here. So it's, hey, I want to let you know that, you know, you enjoy this library, you come here, we want to be up to 40 hours. Well, in order to do that this year, we're probably going to be asking you to do, you know, so it's everyone getting out there and getting the word out there. It can't be just the 7 of us.
no.
I mean,
We can't reach
we've
them.
done a lot to getting that information out there and then, but.
Get beat up.
The hard part
But
is-
you know, I don't worry about that because most of the people that beat you up, I just look at them and I go, and were you at the last town meeting? Well, no, I don't have time. Okay, sit down. Move
Well,
along.
so I was listening to one of the Board of Selectmen meetings, and isn't there an economic development?
It's beginning.
It's just beginning.
Okay. But in the future, when that thing comes about, wouldn't this kind of thing be part of their role? Shouldn't it be part of their role?
You would think so.
Instead of being, I mean, if it's a marketing thing that has to get done, economic development, you're typically thinking, well, we're going to be inviting Target into the town, and that's developing the economy. On the other hand, this is important. This is important stuff. You don't get Target to come into town if you can't put out a fire department or police department to support them.
It's unfortunate because they've been working on selling Rutland Heights, Tommy, for 30 years, right?
At least.
At least. Rutland Heights closed probably 40 years ago. It sat there dormant for a bunch of years, and then they get. So they do all this work. So the other day on the Facebook, everybody starts attacking the town for selling the property for the 100 because we sold it to a developer.
Yep.
It was a giant fest of just bitching about
Yeah.
What are they
everything.
upset about?
What's that?
What are they upset about?
Hey, that we-
It shouldn't be a development, shouldn't be
We gave it away.
housing.
No one even knows, and I wanted to go on there and just comment
Should be what?
and say,
Grocery store.
Basket.
Yeah, no, it's not.
I wanted to go on there and comment and say, you're not even gonna see those houses from the road.
Right.
But, I wanted to see how many people just kept going. But it's the uneducated people that just keep going and don't go to meetings. So it's just,
And they don't have a lot of the information.
they don't have any of
Because they
it.
didn't sell the whole property. We didn't sell the whole property. We
Right.
only sold a portion of it.
Right.
Right.
And then they said, you can't, what happened to this one? Well, there's still plenty of land there to do a whole bunch of things.
In the front, you're not even gonna see these houses from the road.
Plus, we only paid, what, 500,000 for the property, and this one sale is million something?
Yeah.
So we're gonna have extra money. We could build those recreation fields now. We've got things to do. Unless somebody's already got, unless somebody's already got it spent somewhere else. Well, that's what we could do. There's things you can do
We
with it.
spent
It's
30
one-time
years
money.
ago to repair the window from that building 30
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunate, because.
I just
Yeah, no,
wanted to
no.
say, you were asking earlier about and Seth said that he can't say that, well, he can say it. You can get up and explain, look this is our budget, but we also bring in X amount of dollars.
Yeah.
The problem is, by the time we get to town meeting and the budget line items are set up to vote on, you get to public safety, you say so much about, and everybody's, oh, well, they've thought it through, and here's the amount, and they just vote for it. They don't ask the question, and you don't have to get them to explain it, so you don't, you know what I'm saying? You don't say anything because you don't, I'm not
Well,
saying
last
you
year
don't have
when
to, but
the budget was approved, not a single person got up and said.
That's what I'm
a word
saying.
In the entire, what is it, 4 or 5 articles. there
Yeah,
wasn't a
it
word
was
said.
gone.
It was a 45-minute conversation
And
with
that's-
dog licenses. though.
And oh yeah, and it took us how many weeks of us sitting here and
there's
figuring
no
out how to
question.
make it.
Absolutely, there's no
It's always
question
the way
about
it is.
that.
To
But with the
Darren's
exception of the school one, generally speaking, the other budgets, they all know the finance committee's gone through them, picked through them, whatever had to be done, and boom, there they are, boom, boom, boom.
I think that and I think that
So
we
that's why it
also,
doesn't get asked a lot.
Yeah, I know.
I think as a group, we also have to really ask the selectmen and the town administrators to really pressure the school to get this budget out. Because now, Tom, you might not, I don't know if you were, they're not gonna have it for a while. And it's good, they're not even thinking about having it for a while. And it's gonna,
Right now, they're saying a draft budget will be done February 27th, and they don't think they'll make that deadline.
Yeah, that's what we're shooting for. We're not gonna make it.
but they've already thrown a couple
The budget that we
hand
have.
grenades out there saying they're already $1 million something in the debt.
Well, the nice thing is that millions on this year, and they got to figure that out. That's not our
Yeah,
problem.
but you watch.
Yeah, but they're gonna ask for that additional.
They figured it out. It's gonna come to you. It's gonna come to
Well,
us.
we put in, we put in in this, what we're discussing, there is a change. There, we did put it in at a high rate.
Yes.
If it comes in higher than that, there's only so much we can do, but.
And not
Yeah.
to speak for Gary, but he really has been staying on top of the district and meeting with them regularly and
Oh,
emphasizing the need
I'm not
for
saying it, but
It's
it would be
just
nice
hard
if the
because
selectmen kind of put their hammer down too.
I don't know
Well,
that it would make a difference,
I also
to be
think that,
honest.
don't forget the selectmen, I think truly, it should be the school committee, should be all over saying, why can't we get this? Towns need this, get this done. They're the ones that,
It'd be a special
They're
night if all the
elected
people on the
officials.
school committee come to the meeting with us.
I mean, that's the thing, that's the people. So we're the ones responsible for bringing the town budget to the town.
What-
They're the ones for the school budget.
What meeting are you suggesting the school committee, our school committee representative be at our meeting?
Yeah. Then we don't get them all every time.
No, but I mean,
We have
just for the school or for the,
No.
We haven't sat with them for the last several years.
I know that.
We sat with the administration.
Right,
Yes.
they come in, they
But
do
we
their
used to
dog
get
department.
our school committee to come into this meeting like all the rest of the departments do.
Exactly. They don't. Or maybe you get one.
I was gonna say, I think we get one.
Do you
So-
know what their budget process is? Is it primarily the administration does the budget and shows it to the school committee and says, what do you think? Or is the school committee members much involved with the development?
I'm sure it's the administration
Yeah.
that brings it, and then it's the school committee.
And they just,
And they
it's
vote.
this.
And they do it. And I think that's who needs to be pushing this. We need this done, we need this done. The new superintendent came on, July 1st? And he had 3 months overlapping with Dr. McCall. So, I mean,
He was here with Dr. McCall last year. but
right,
Yes, he was.
he was.
he had
But
inherited- he
that's my
inherited a
whole
bag
thing
of
is, at this
rattlesnakes,
point,
so-
it's kind of like it would be irresponsible of us to wait. And wait, and it's irresponsible of them to put it upon the towns, because for the 5 towns, I think it's a size, I know it's a sizable amount for us and for Paxton and for Princeton, so I can only imagine for the other 2, it's the same. It's a sizable amount.
So Karen, just to bring, I think, Tommy up to speed, we said last week that we expected that we would be 3.1 over what, and where does that gap between revenues and stuff gonna be? We have no idea.
We
right?
have no revenues. We're dealing right now on the revenues that we had last year, because the cherry sheets are not out yet from,
But what we don't think is gonna be significant.
I have no idea. We just changed everything, because everything changed. We have a brand-new administration, so who knows what they're going to do.
Okay.
And even if you were to ask the Division of Local Services, I don't think they could even predict what's happening at this point. So as soon as the cherry sheets come out, then we can start adjusting the top line. And I'm assuming that Gary is working with Becky to make sure that all of the other ones are
Yes.
tightened up. Because the cherry sheet's the big stuff, the unrestricted government, unrestricted aid.
So we're gonna
that's
be
what-
out of whack like $3 million.
As of right now, if we stayed, everything stays the same from last year's numbers.
But there should be an anticipated revenue sheet that has estimates on it right now from the town. Wouldn't there be?
I'm not
If he's working on
sure,
a budget, he's gotta have something to work from.
I'm not sure, we
No, I know.
just used, I'm not sure that's, I don't know. I can tell you that what is on the budget that we were talking about last week is the exact same amount that we got last year for top line revenues.
Do they ever go down?
I'm sure they can.
I hope not.
There's been some challenges because of turnover and issues at the accountant's office, and I know that Becky has been working diligently on the revenue, so it definitely is in progress, for sure. It's definitely being worked on.
And I don't mean to be negative Nelly here, but this process started in September, so I don't understand why we're here in February and we don't have it. I know we just lost Jean, and I know that was a big deal, and I'm not minimizing that, I'm not. But you gotta do it. There's just no two ways about it.
Well, that's my concern, that we don't have both of these from all other departments.
Exactly. I mean, it is a concern, because right now we're looking at, that's why I had to put something in there, because we were just talking theoretical. And I was like, okay, so let's just move the top line over, and now let's look what we got. Because you gotta stop talking theoretical. It's too late to stop talking theoretical. October, it was fine to talk theoretical, not now. Because we have to move forward. Because if this does come to a point that there is an override, this will require public information hearings, it will require all kinds of things. And we know how hard it was to get all that other stuff done that year when we had to put everything out to try to keep everything. That was a lot of work in a very short period of time for us.
And if we don't get buy-in by the other government officials, management officials, i.e. selectmen,
Yeah.
then I'm really not going to the wall unless they all buy in, because that was the worst. That was a beating that I'm not willing to take again.
I know
Nor should
that,
you be willing to
I
take
can
that.
tell you that that was the comment that has been made by myself to the interim town administrator at least 6 times.
Okay.
You know,
And that's-
and he is aware of that, because it has to be a joint thing. Because truthfully, we can't say it's gonna be an override. It's their decision.
Right.
But we have to start looking at it and seeing and saying, okay, now we have to bring this forward and say this is what has to
And if
happen.
they don't support it,
Then
let
it
us
doesn't.
know right early.
Right, exactly.
So
And
we
that
can
was,
cut bait early, because
Right.
we can't go into it,
like what it was last year.
yes.
I agree. And that's exactly what I said. I said, because that was awful last year and there was no reason for that, so, yes.
Okay,
Karen, for next Thursday's meeting, the 16th, we had DPW and Concom scheduled. Peter has indicated that he can't
Right.
come, so I didn't know if you guys wanted to put anybody else in there that evening, or just leave it at DPW.
We should plug away.
Well, we should get it.
Oh, wait a minute, don't we have Nancy coming next week?
Nancy is coming in place of dispatch on the 23rd,
Okay.
because dispatch could not come on the 23rd.
I don't know who
how
else to
about can
bring.
dispatch go on
Next
next
week?
week?
We meet
No,
Thursday?
he's leaving for vacation for 2 weeks.
This Thursday we're meeting, okay.
Not
No.
2 days.
Next Thursday.
Next,
Next
a week
Thursday.
from
Week
Thursday.
from-
9 days.
We're doing one
Thank
day a
you.
week.
I can't add that fast.
All right.
We did 2 last year, right?
Yes,
We
we
did,
were.
but the vote was here that we were gonna start at 1 day a week, and then if we had to go to 2, we would.
We're
We're
doing
thinking you,
ones.
Ted, trying to not to beat us up too much too early.
But I guess that's what I'm saying, is if we can squeeze some other ones in on that one night.
Right.
Let's
I
squeeze
just,
them in.
I don't know who else.
'Cause you're
who else
like
to
halfway
bring.
out the door.
Does anyone have a suggestion?
If you
We'd
stayed
have to
up
look.
nice.
I feel like
Set up. Whatever.
I feel like we intentionally looked at the bigger ones.
Right,
and
because
I
those,
can't think of the bigger ones off the top. of my
about
head.
the only other thing that will
Fire,
have to
police,
wait is
DPW,
once
and
we,
school.
right.
Yeah.
And once we see once, we see some other stuff, we'll need to go through the details of the revenues and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
that's not ready yet, so that won't be ready by next Thursday. Because that's the things I'm thinking of is, you get the detail of the revenues, you get this, you get that. And, we still wanted information on them to put out the HRA to see if we can, so there was a lot of things circulating there to not try to bring that piece in
But
yet.
if we bring her in, ask her if she's available, and ask her if she's gotten anywhere with that, did you get a reply from that? I know you were gonna send an
It's been
email.
brought up several times.
Do you wanna send an email?
It's been brought up several times, including with
Gary.
Select Board and with Gary. So at this point, I think we have to let that piece work its way out before we bring them in. Because then it's just gonna be another theoretical decision, and
Okay.
I wanna look at real numbers. Like Seth comes in with real numbers, Joe's gonna come in with real numbers, and we can start having the conversations and we can actually start looking at things versus the theoretical. I wanna understand the revenues. I think that's really important, and that's not done yet, so we have to wait.
Might I suggest inspectional services?
That's not a real big change, though.
Okay.
That was the thing. That's why Concom was being brought in, because they had a really big swing,
Yeah.
and we wanted to understand that, so.
That was a big swing.
It was a big swing, we wanted to understand, so, going through, we wanted to just kind of see, big swing was in council
There
and
really
aging, so
wasn't
we
any
brought them in,
evidence.
so, when you look right down, there wasn't, inspectional services would just be, oh, I need a new set of books, I need the, so it's normal stuff. We're kind of looking at the big hit items right now, I think. That was my goal, is to look at the big hit items until we,
So,
Sounds good.
I guess the other thing that at some point we need to discuss is how do we approach discussing or applying the reductions that are gonna have to be made if the decision is we're not gonna go with the override to the extent of a needs budget.
we're gonna have to do it regardless, because you're gonna have to do
No.
iterations regardless.
Right, and I understand that, but how do we apply? What's the policy or what's the procedure that we use to be able to say, you're at, as Tommy's point was, you're at 150, you gotta go to 100. How do we do that? Are we gonna, because there was a question about, well, you can't do that to everybody.
You can't hit everybody for a 10%, you can't hit everybody with $1. You kind of have to look at department by department and figure it out from there, because you can't hit, I'm just, one of the smaller departments, you can't hit them for, $7,500, because you'll bury them.
Right.
They won't be able to do even level service.
Right, but that's my point.
But
How do
it's-
how
but
do we
in
make
some-
that, how do we make that decision? How do we,
By discussing it, but the bottom line is, when you know how much money you got to spend,
Yeah.
that's what the budget's gotta be.
I think it's the other way around. It's you take the level funded and then you figure out what you have additional and you figure out where you're gonna spend that additional money.
okay, and
But
that's
I
fine.
think,
It's not gonna be that easy.
Yeah.
but I think that you lock.
We
I
usually
think
take
that
level funding and still have to cut it.
To avoid getting blamed on the town meeting floor,
Yeah,
and to avoid getting beaten up around town, we're gonna close the door with the town administrator, and he's gonna have to give us what he expects, because we don't make decisions.
No, I understand,
We
you're right.
make recommendations and we try to help.
That's
We
right.
guidance.
We
So
recommend.
I am not gonna say that XYZ has to happen.
Okay, no, and I understand what you're saying, but to Karen's point, you have to have something to present.
And that's a great job for the town administrator.
We can't throw our hands up and say,
Well,
I'm not doing it.
we can help them, but we can't, you know what I'm saying?
And all I'm saying to you is unfortunately, whether you like it or not, our job is to bring a balanced budget to the town floor. Period, end of story. Whether we like it or not, it's our job.
Exactly, and that's just what I'm saying. So we are presented with whatever the figures are, and we need to
Right.
look at them on behalf of the taxpayers
Yep.
and say, Jesus, like I just said earlier, I know you wanted 150, but we only got 100 to give you, and here's our balanced budget.
Yeah.
But specific departments, and this is where I'm going with this, is not our job. It's we've gotta cut the $50,000 out of Tommy's budget. But that's not our job.
2
to
years
tell.
ago, when we weren't given any guidance,
We did that,
we did it.
and we got beat up, and I don't wanna do that again.
Nobody
But
wants
it's our
to do
job
it, but
look
we
at
don't
those
have a
numbers and Say
choice.
where's they
Oh,
coming
it
from.
doesn't look any
If we
different
make an
to me right
argument
now
that-
than it did 2 years ago.
No, it does not, you're exactly right.
But from an outsider's
It actually looks worse.
I think no matter
Potentially,
how
yeah.
hard you try, I think the perception is still gonna be for
It's our fault.
uneducated folks that it's the FinCom's
Sure.
fault. So I think no matter how much you try to put it on
Exactly.
the town administrator,
Exactly, right.
departments
And we
will
all have big
understand, but
shoulders,
the
but
public will
they-
still say
Right.
FinCom.
Well, I mean, the thing is it doesn't make a difference because it's our budget that we're bringing. So, yes, it doesn't make a difference and I guess, I don't know, maybe I've just become so dead into it when I just tell people, I'm like, well, were you at the town meeting? No, okay, then walk away.
Yeah, thank you.
Is that really, the bylaw says that it's our job to bring a balanced budget?
It's not the bylaw, it's the actual,
Because that's what's in the bylaw.
it's in the
for
fine- it's in the-
CFO.
It's on our town bylaws, and it's a
It's-
state law too, I
well-
think, or a state regulation.
Well, as part of that, didn't we,
We didn't get it, that, none of those new things have gone into play, so
No,
none
I
of those have
understand that,
changed.
but they-
But it's also in that finance committee handbook that
That's
you got.
right.
If you look in there, it's clear, there's a paragraph that tells you what your,
Right.
what your charge is, and that is, our job is to bring a balanced budget to the town floor. It is not the select board's budget, it is not the town administrator's budget, it is the finance committee's budget.
so I guess the only thing that I was asking was more
Woo-hoo!
So,
along
but-
the
But we all have
lines
to
of,
work
that was-
together to do it.
I agree.
So you're saying
That's
those
the most
bylaw
important
changes
part.
that we have been talking about now for a year and a half, 2 years have not gone into effect?
That is correct.
Correct.
Because
And
that
then-
was specifically in the CFO's
Correct.
That is
bylaw
correct.
aspect. So you're saying that
Right.
after that change happens, it will no longer be our responsibility?
It will still be our responsibility to bring it forward. It will just be, in theory, less effort on our part, in theory.
so I guess the
Because
only,
because the finance committee's job is still to bring the balanced budget. It's just, in theory, will be brought to us and we will just need to fine tune a few things.
Lynn said the most, we have to work together,
We do.
and that's the most
We
important.
have a Zoom call. And you know who's on it?
Nobody?
Run.
We've got the cable, we got the cable commission. That's it. That's all that's here. And there are no one sitting in any of the seats. And that was the, well, we want to post because we're worried about not it having too many people. And this is usually how it goes.
yeah, we know that. I mean, really, that's, like, we've been around a while now, that we know this stuff. But I guess my particular point was, there's gotta be a method to the madness here. We've got Tommy's point was, we've got a big number. It's $24 million, whatever the budget, town budget turns out to be. And that number is going to have to be something different than what it totals out to be. So how do we get it there?
Once we get the revenues, we
Right.
can have this conversation. Because right now, $3 million, you might as well just put a gun in your mouth and shoot, because that's gonna be a mess. So we gotta wait till we get
It is gonna be a
the
mess.
revenues. I mean, that's the thing, this is all theoretical, and from there, then we can have a manageable, I mean, we're
But I
just,
think we could all, as educated people as we are, I think we're not gonna have $3 million in extra revenues.
Oh, no.
Probably not.
So there's gonna be a little change, there's
We
gonna
should-
be,
There's a big Powerball.
there will be changes, I mean, and that's the thing, there will be changes, there's no doubt about it.
I
And
have
it
some
will be
leftover plastic in my shed, it'll make less of a mess.
There you go.
But I mean,
Tom
but
Hanks.
that's the whole thing, is this is, unfortunately,
where we're at.
it's, I haven't had a simple year yet,
You ever will?
11 years. So this is just kind of the way it is. How many years have you been doing this, Tommy?
Too long.
Too long.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right.